Life after COVID has been difficult. As practitioners, we're all out there looking for an answer. And the Heamelumen is that answer. It changes and cleanses the blood and restores your health in a way nothing else can. And it changed my life completely.
I became aware of the technology behind the Heamelumen in 1998 when I discovered the Knott Hemo irradiator. The Hemo irradiator was developed in about 1928 by Emmett Knott, who was an inventor. Initially, the target was septicemia. He was able to show that he could effectively treat those septicemias. It would take 1 day or 2 days. Going forward, that was used over a period of 20-some years or so. The thing that really killed this was the hype of the promotion behind the antibiotics, saying that all disease was cured using the antibiotics. UVBI is the terminology that was used for most of these machines prior to this device, because they simply used ultraviolet blood irradiation. But polychromatic takes that to another level, because we've added all these other wavelengths that are not only ancillary, but they're synergistic. So what we've done is we've taken that Knott machine, we've taken the good elements of the Knott machine, we've put them into this device, and we're able to treat both chronic and acute conditions. The Knott Hemo irradiator had great results with acute conditions, but couldn't treat chronic conditions very well. So what we have here, I'm going to turn it on now, is an array of light sources consisting of a UVA light source, a UVC, a red light source, green, amber, and it's now violet. We have it listed as blue on the device. They all work synergistically together. These two, UVA and UVC, used together will actually form double covalent bonds in adjacent strands of DNA in virus and bacteria, and we render them unable to replicate. So as your blood is going through this system, we're disabling these pathogens, returning them to the body. We also instituted the addition of a double wavelength red light source, and we use 625 nanometers and 660 nanometers. And the reason for that is we want to protect the blood while we're treating it with ultraviolet. We want to protect the primary nucleotides, SOD, catalase, etc. But we also want to photoactivate certain molecules, for example, methylene blue. We can do that very well using red light because it absorbs the light and then it takes on electrons, becomes an electron donor, and as an electron donor, it's virucidal and bactericidal. We have a green light in here which actually opens up the capillaries in the system and allows for better perfusion of blood, delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the blood. We have amber in here, and amber helps in the release and formation of nitric oxide. And we have a 430 nanometer blue-violet source in here, which we use to photoactivate curcumin, particularly because in the treatment of a chronic condition such as cancer, curcumin as a supplement, in the bloodstream goes after cancer, and we photoactivate it. We have high airflow from the front of the machine to the back of the machine. We're pulling air in from the bottom of the machine. We're pushing it across the machine and the light sources and where the blood treatment, the trivette, is located, and pulling it out the back. So you want to make sure you have good airflow and you don't want to overheat the blood. You don't want to laze the blood. This is our trivette. Consists of 3 tubes that have 10 inches of exposure to the light. The reason why we do that is because viral inactivation, bacterial inactivation, fungal, pathogenic inactivation is a function of energy, time, and wavelength. We want to have a longer contact time in order for the blood with the pathogens to go through here and to be deactivated more efficiently. All other devices that currently exist that are so-called competitive devices use a single tube. Well, it takes about 32 seconds for the blood to get through this device, as opposed to, say, about 10 seconds for any other one. So you don't have a lot of time to infuse energy into the bloodstream, into the circulating blood, because you simply don't have enough contact time. what we're doing is we're putting enough energy, enough force against these pathogens that are circulating in the system in order to disable them. Pathogens require at least 50, 75 joules of energy to deactivate them. And we have about 26 watts of ultraviolet emission. There is no other machine on the planet that even does 10% of that. So we're looking at about 90 watts of infusion times 3, which is 270 watts of infused energy on the blood, whereas there's no other device that has more than 4. This device is in a class by itself because of the combination of wavelengths, the sheer amount of photonic energy that's input into the blood, and the contact time and the surface area of the trivette. We view this device as a first line of defense against EIDs, which are emerging infectious diseases. These are diseases that come up. We have no idea what their origin is. The whys and the wherefores, we don't know. They don't have a name, they don't have a treatment, they don't have a protocol, they don't have drugs. So what the industry does now is it looks at, well, what do we have that'll treat these various symptoms, etc. Well, what we do is we go to the root cause of the problem to find out what the pathogenesis is of this virus and kill it. Because we deactivate adjacent strands of DNA, rendering them unable to replicate. It doesn't matter whether it's viral, it doesn't matter whether it's bacterial. It doesn't matter whether it's dengue or AIDS or hepatitis or Ebola or whatever it might be. This device will deactivate those pathogens, and then those deactivated pathogens are returned to the body in the closed system, and the immune system can then identify them as culprits. So when you take these, you run them through the machine, and when you take the blood out, and then you put it back into the body through the same cannula. We're not putting any strange elements in it. We add saline and heparin to, dilute the blood a little bit to help preventing clots, etc., while it's going out of the system and back in. But when you do that, you're returning back to the body these pathogens that you've annihilated. So what does a vaccine do? A vaccine is simply, the traditional vaccine is virus or bacteria, etc., that has been grown in a lab, killed with ultraviolet, purified to get all the other stuff out of it that they don't want in it, and injected into the body. So they're giving you killed pathogens just like we are in a vaccine, only we're not putting mercury in it or any other substances. We're not doing anything unnatural. It's a closed system. We don't introduce any other chemicals or elements or anything. We just take your blood out, we treat it, and put it back into the body, and we help your body then identify those pathogens, the other ones that are floating around your system, and attack them. We unmask them, so to speak.
In the past, it's always been, finally there's light at the end of the tunnel, but the problem was it was an oncoming train. So I've had 2 broken necks. I've changed my entire life over a period of 30 years as a result of it. And it's often been difficult. I had an impingement on my spinal cord from a second accident. Now, this happened to me when I was 40-some years old, but then it happened again. And so what happened again is I fell down the side steps out here, and a little piece of bone impinged on the intrathecal sac of my spinal cord, which simply meant it was cutting off and cutting off and cutting off. So I was getting more and more pressure on the spinal cord and less mobility. I had a surgery. The surgery failed because they put a cage in my neck, has screws in it. Those screws broke. So I had yet a third problem. I had a failed surgery. I rapidly declined after that, and which was about a year ago, ending up to a near paralysis. After this big life of COVID that everybody has experienced as a group, I had activated other viruses that produce mucus, and whether we got it through surgery, of all that surgery or whatever, there was something going on throughout my body that was inhibiting my return to health. I saw about 13 different doctors, and everybody had a piece of it, and not a very deep piece. So you can go to 13 different doctors and have 13 different opinions. So I had ptosis where my eye drooped. I had Bell's palsy where my face drooped. Schatzky disorder of ring where I couldn't swallow, lost 60 pounds. Neuropathy where the feet go so cold you don't know they're there. And nobody could figure it out. Traditional ideas didn't cover what was going on. So neuropathy was progressing, and that makes it hard to walk because your feet hurt. Your hands don't grasp. So apparently during this time, I reactivated, in my weaknesses, I reactivated something called Epstein-Barr and cytomegaloviruses, and they tend to be cousins. They're both in the same area. And I was 100 times more active than I should be.
Dr. Payne, good friend of mine for a number of years, has had a recurrence of Epstein-Barr virus, which was probably lurking beneath the surface. He may have come in contact with somebody that had the coronavirus, the viral shedding, or he may have gotten it himself, etc., or had some other reason why his immune system was compromised. But now it's come to the surface, and we're treating him to put that to rest, to get rid of it in his system. And the way we would do that with a chronic condition is to do this on a little bit of an infrequent basis. We don't want to aggressively go after a virus that was latent or has come up as a chronic condition. We want to treat it gradually so that we don't overwhelm the system.
So psychologically, it seems a little scary, but it isn't. It's just a little bit of blood that goes out. So the answer was, I was frightened.
The treatment is fairly simple. You get a good stick with a patient, you put the pads on to help with the photodynamic aspect of this. You've got the methylene blue in the system. You take out some of the blood, you reverse the flow, and you drip it back in. So it should take about an hour total to do the treatment. What we're doing is infusing 350 cc's of heparinized saline into the patient to hydrate the patient and heparinize the system. It'll be less subject to coagulation.
Because it's always the complicated stuff. As long as life is in a nice little box, we can figure it out. But when you are trying to get better, there's really only two medical procedures: detoxification and purification. And so what I think we're doing right here today, and what I hope to get out of it, is that I'm purifying the blood of the antibodies and the toxins that actually facilitate the chronic disease. And so, now that I've made my own adjustments in my life and I'm starting on the road back, this makes the most sense of getting to this reset, so to speak. So we won't play with that word reset. This is the right reset.
So now his blood is getting treated with the red light, both wavelengths of ultraviolet, the violet, the green to help his circulation to the extremities, the capillaries. We're increasing his nitric oxide release and formation, and we're going after circulating virus and bacteria in his system. So this is the type of thing with Dr. Payne I'd recommend doing a couple of times a week, for a number of weeks to resolve this, because this is a chronic condition that has reemerged.
We're going to give the rest of your blood to you.
Okay.
We're just going to give it all back to you. See how nicely it's flowing, Michael? Well, one that they just.
Good. I got worried about it there for a bit.
So take a look at it now.
Oh, I can't. I'll get sick. Biological medicine, you have to have activation. And so because the cells are disorganized, and the more that you put frequency and activation in your life,
It's moving
the
around.
better the biological outcomes happen. I feel so
Tie his wrist down.
Did you notice that once that went down, I couldn't talk? I use a lot of treatments, but I've been doing it for a year. And in the past 7 days, I have made 60% gain. I've been sleeping, it went from 4 hours to 7 hours. It's very deep. The eye is almost fully functional, As the pain levels went down, the gait of walking, you could get a bigger stride, you could lunge forward. That's the big thing in physical therapy. They had me hold onto the counter in there and do lunges, which I couldn't do. So now I can lunge. I can get into the pool and do stretches. I can do neurovestibular exercises. And the biggest issue that really is honestly the biggest issue that you don't think about, you just get used to it, is neuropathy, where the feet go so cold you don't know they're there. And that is 80% better. I've actually walked into grocery stores without the cane and the chiropractor, and that has never happened. I did that this week just to prove that I could. So overall, I'd say I'm about, just on the first treatment, 60 to 70% better.
I'm off to the first walk on the beach. 5 years. Here we go. I'm taking the cake with me because I don't want to look like a French mime walking in the sand. So I'll see you later.
So right now, I'm at my 4th session coming up. Started about, I'd say, a month ago. And what has happened is a 70% increase in range of motion, gait, and strength. What I'm able to do now that I couldn't do in the past was self-care. I can actually button my top button for the first time in 2 years. I could button my own button. Bone pain went away, and neuropathy went down about 75%. I had the stamina to travel 5 hours for the first time since therapy. And back, I had the ability to sit through a family reunion, and you guys know how those things go. I think that was a really interesting thing in the hotel that we were at the family reunion. The doors are profoundly heavy these days, like real wood, heavy doors, and I was able to manage a luggage cart and open the door at the same time. Wow, that's a big deal. I will miss the buggy cart races because my wife and my son used to put me actually on the luggage cart and take me to the car, so they don't have to do that anymore. So those are the kind of things that you notice as activities of daily living, but it's just being human is really beautiful when you get the chance. So you only know how bad it is not to have it when you don't have it. So you really enjoy the second half of life as a result of getting these kind of chances. Because who at age 70 gets to walk after 2 broken necks? Nobody, probably. I am, for the first time, as healthy as I was when I was 30 or 40 years old, just from an attitude standpoint and from the improvement. It's been an amazing trip.
We're doing this to change the medical paradigm and help people on this planet. We can deliver healing and a modality of healing to third, fourth, fifth world countries, little villages that hardly have a needle, hardly have a syringe. You can make all the drugs you want in the world, but you're not going to get them there, and you're not going to have the ability to treat all these pathogenic variants, that exist in these places. So this technology can bring them healing in the far corners of the earth where drugs could never even get anywhere. So it is a non-drug treatment. It's light. Light heals. Light kills viruses. We have done treatments in Dominican Republic, Tanzania, Uganda, Lagos, Nigeria, in Mexico, Panama, Echo University, which is the #1 university in Nigeria. We treated 57 malaria patients. We resolved malaria in all of those patients in 2 days. In Mexico, we're doing clinical trials to establish this as an effective treatment for dengue fever, which we did prior in the Dominican Republic. And we're going to show to the Mexican government, Colombian government, others, etc., that this is an effective treatment for that disease. So we will be able to establish this as an approved medical device. That's a good thing, because then people can discover it works for other diseases like coronavirus, which we treated in Mexico in May of 2020 with great success with all our patients. It's really been designed to be a benefit to mankind.